when you start Lone Wolf in the 80s, if you think it's going to so big, epic?
No, no, as you'd expect me to say, but no, I wrote the first book in 1983. I took 2 weeks off. I was working at Games Workshop at the time, still quite a fledgling company at that time. It was importing a lot of role-playing material. It was still in the golden age, so White Dwarf was, you know, a wasn't a Warhammer catalogue at that time. It actually was a role-playing magazine, and it covered lots of different aspects from different manufacturers. But I'd made the decision. I'd seen just how well Fighting Fantasy had done for Ian and Steve, and we were all working together. So a lot of the familiar names you see on the game book scene, we were all worked together at some point. I was earning a pitiful wage by comparison to what I'm doing now, and I had a young family to support, so there was financial pressure there to actually make some money. Plus, I had 6 or 7 years worth of Lone Wolf material, and I think I've said this before in previous interviews, but it warrants a repeat here. Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson were running Games Workshop. They knew I had Lone Wolf and been working on it for some time. By that time I was editing White Dwarf magazine for them. They were about to go through changes anyway. Ian and Steve were looking to sell up and retire and sell on to Brian Ansell, who was running Citadel Miniatures in the middle of the UK. So there's a big change about to take place. The London office was about to close, everything was going to move to Nottingham, and people will ask, you either move with us or you leave, sort of thing. There's no way I was going to move anyway, but I'd already made a different decision. I'd seen how well Warlock of Fartop Mountain had gone, and I thought Ian and Steve had made an offer to me for Lone Wolf to produce it as a role-playing game at Games Workshop. Something along equivalent lines of RuneQuest, really. I wanted an English RuneQuest. But the deal they offered me was so pathetically bad that I was insulted. I was so insulted that I thought, stuff it, I'm gonna leave. Not only that, I'm going to change Lone Wolf into a solo role-playing campaign and directly compete with you. That's how angry I am about this. They couldn't have, they really made a bad decision on that day. Right, that's it. I'm quitting, and I'm going to. I'm going for you guys head on. You've got a new competitor. Because I realised immediately that nobody had done a solo campaign. Fighting Fantasy was great, but they're all standalone individual adventures, and very few of them were being written by Ian and Steve. They were being farmed out to other writers anyway, and so there was no cohesion there. There was no. They didn't all link together. Now, having done all this work on Lone Wolf, I knew I had a fantastic background story to tell a solo role-playing campaign to establish it. Nobody had done it before, consequently that was a really good reason to do it. It was an original. I had won a world championship, D&D World Championships in the US in '82, so I had a bit of credibility with regards to publishers in the UK. I was based in London, which was the perfect place to be to get a good publishing deal. I was working with Gary Chalk, the illustrator, and I said to Gary, look, these are my plans. I intend to leave. Would you consider leaving and becoming the artist for this series if I can get a good deal? And he jumped at the chance as well. So between us, we produced a mock-up of what a typical spread would look like. Illustration on one page, text on the other. Fully completed. Now this is pre-digital age. We're talking letter set and old-fashioned stuff. Really hard work to put together a good-looking page. Now old-fashioned printing, real old school. But we did that, and then I went up to London and presented it to 3 major publishers. And it wasn't the old story of the struggling author waiting 10 years to get some sort of. It was completely the opposite. They were jumping on it. They couldn't have That was incredible. So all 3 of them wanted it. I think it was Corgi, it was Hutchinson, and it was Transworld. I think they were at the time. The three big ones at the time. Penguin had already gone with Fighting Fantasy, so I obviously didn't bother with them. It would have been counterproductive. And so I presented it. I presented it on a Wednesday, and then I had what I now referred to as the Frantic Friday. 2 days later, the phone didn't stop ringing, and it was one publisher said, we'll give you X amount of money and so on, a 4-book deal and so on. It started in the morning. It's quite modest, you know. I think the first offer was for £4,000. It's for £1,000 for each book in advance. Okay. And then throughout the day, it was, I'll think about that, but you do realise I've got other publishers interested. Oh yes, but don't make any decision until you... Okay, fine. That's how it went. And then the next one, don't make any decision until we find out how final... Well, give me a final offer. What is your final offer? And then, well, I'll think about it. Call me back later. And that was all day for 8 hours solid. Okay, and it started off with £4,000 for 4 books. And at the end of the day, I accepted an offer of £100,000 for 4 books. That's you know, the true worth of what was going on through the day. And it's crazy. I remember a couple of years back there was an advertisement, I think it was Coca-Cola on television. It's only in the UK. And there's a guy there, and he's like a singer in a band, and it's a young band, and they're about to break big, and they've done a gig, and you know, and the company's interested. And he goes to the refrigerator, and he opens a cold Coke, and he's hanging on the phone, and he's enjoying the Coke, and he's not answering the phone, and the offers are going up and up and up while he's enjoying the Coke. And that was it. That was
like early eBay.
Yeah, that's what it was like. Just more and more bids. So it got crazy. But the funny thing is, I didn't accept the highest bid. I actually went with the publisher that was the second highest bid. But they gave me the freedom to do what, you know, to fulfil the vision I had. I had a very strong vision for it. Then obviously there's the embedded interest of the established editorial team who know best. You know, we've been here years, we've got our college degrees, we've produced all this work. You do it like we say because we know best. Yeah, but I'm writing this, and I've 7 years work here, and I know what I want to say. And so they were the ones that said, right, we'll give you the freedom to do it. Okay, and that was the big break, because suddenly, you know, I just had an offer on the phone which was 10 years' wages in advance. And I thought, you know, how can I turn this down? This is it's just amazing. It was amazing. So, and from that point on, you know, it was serious. Yeah, I was getting paid as a serious writer. And then the publishers were absolutely delighted, of course, when it was released, because they got all their money back in an instant. Really,
when you had the first week, and you
first week was outstanding. I mean, it was outstanding.
Perhaps it was a little bit risky. Did you feel, it could be?
No, I quite the opposite. It was like,
what will I do if they're only?
They're going to give me 10. They're going to give me 10 years' wages in advance with no. Well, I don't have to pay it back. With no guarantee. If it goes wrong, I don't have to pay it back. What's risky about that? It's risky to turn it down, I thought. Okay, so I thought, this is fantastic. You know, suddenly, yeah. So suddenly, you know, I had enough. You know, paid the tax. Tax was horrendous in the UK in '84, 60% top rate. So I'd lost a lot of it in tax, but there's still a sufficient amount to be there. And I was sharing, you know, the advance with Gary as well. But it gave us enough money to live on to produce the initial 4 books. That was the important thing. So throughout '84 and '85, I was writing pretty solidly to get that done. But the real payday came after the initial launch of it, because suddenly it wasn't just 100,000 books in the UK. We had something like 16 foreign publishers came in and made offers within 3 months in the summer of '84. And you know, and that's when I kind of learned the business, and that's when I realised actually the authors are making the money off of selling the foreign rights, because you get a much bigger share from the publisher for selling the foreign rights. I'll give a little insight on the financials to give you just what a life-changing event it was for me. I was earning around about £7,800 in 1983, working as an editor for White Dwarf, which by modern times is pretty pitiful, which by then was pretty average at that, given that we're probably at inflation rate of about 170% more now than it was worth then. Okay, so that wage would be equivalent to about €15,000 a year. All right, so that was, you know, yeah.
That's fine.
Which
How many copies were sold?
Nothing great. Goldman sold a hell of a lot in Germany initially. So 1983, 15. I'll stick to the sterling because I know the figures. £7,800. At the end of 1984, I'd made £780,000. So it had gone up, whatever that percentage had been. And sadly for me, in 1984, the top rate of tax was 60%. So there is a big chunk of my local hospital that I financed, which is, I'm kind of a bit of a socialist at heart. I'm quite happy, I've done my bit for the good of the country as well. So I paid my dues. But wow, what a life-changing event that was, I thought the advance was big enough, but then the real money came in, and it was from all of these foreign publishing deals, because each one of those was paying an advance against what they thought their market was worth.
Yes.
And Goldman was a big market then, and they sold a lot.
Yes.
Certainly certainly 85 to 90 was very healthy, yeah, very good. And then it comes in from all over: Serbo-Croat editions, Israeli editions, Czechs from Poland and Argentina, and absolutely. Yeah, Poland, yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, even Poland.
Because of the communists.
Absolutely, no. But Polish got a big literary tradition in certainly,
of course,
certainly in children's literature, and they did a great deal. We used to laugh about it. In fact, my editor at the publishing house phoned up and said, "Congratulations, Joe, you're a zloty millionaire." And at that time, it was like something. It was like Monopoly money. What is zloty? I look at it's 20,000 to a pound.
Yes.
Okay, so we're £500.
In Italy, it was also easy.
Yeah, the lira in Italy was like astronomical as well. So very strange. But yeah, what a fantastic turnaround that was.
Absolutely.
So and then I realised actually you can make a lot of money being an author if the book sells. Kind of, yeah. If you take the tax off, then not so much, but because as my accountant,
living was higher than.
well, then I could buy a house that I could put a family in, and so things got a little bit more
I
comfortable.
guess London is expensive, so also
Well, sort of just on the outside of it. But yeah, it changed. It was a life-changing event. It made it all happen then, and gave me a great incentive to write, and continue writing. Nowadays, the money's still to be made, but it comes in different routes, far more different and more diverse routes. And it kind of brings me back to what my advice was to Alberto, is to hang on to the rights. Don't sell world rights to one person, because very often they don't exploit them, and then you've got them tied up. Better to have individual negotiations with different parties. So you're going to have the mobile rights for this territory, okay, but nothing else. And as advice to any fledgling writers that are looking to get into it professionally, that's probably the best advice I can give when it comes to hang on to the rights that come naturally with creating that work and the characters and this world setting. And they just sell what they're going to use and exploit, and nothing above and beyond that.
That was the first mistake I committed.
It was, yeah. When I went through your paperwork, Alberto, you do realise you've given everything to the publisher.
Stupid boy.
No, but you kind of had to do that in order to realise, not to do it again.
No, but yeah, exactly. But seeing now all my book covers sold, in German, France, in Italy, and without getting any money in advance or for the rights, is very frustrating.
Yeah, it's unfair, really.
That's why I said I was naive at the time, because I didn't think in advance that I would have.
It could happen, no?
It's very easy to do, yeah, especially and publishers know that, unfortunately. But that's the consequence. They don't want to keep paying you out money. They just want to buy a piece of artwork that they can exploit wherever they want to exploit it. And then, of course, they're charging all these other publishers to use that artwork, so they make a fortune.
Yeah, I know. It's so stupid. But
no, it's not stupid.
No, I was emotionally involved at the time, because I was so happy for the chance I had to collaborate with Joe that I didn't even think about.
This is what the publishers are looking for.
This guy is very sensitive, so let's take advantage.
This is the one. We'll have him. We'll have everything he does, and his firstborn son as well. That's usually in the contract.
Please stop talking about mongoose.
No. Okay. The wound is still there.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I'm looking forward to having another collaboration like that, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I certainly, I've taken Alberto under my wing in that sense. So he does send contracts through occasionally, and I do say, don't touch this at all. Don't go anywhere near this one. Or this one is good. Just push for this.
Yeah.
We did some retrospective as well, because it kind of, we played up a little bit. Didn't
Yeah,
we?
yeah.
Said, "No, this is not this is morally unfair. It's in contract, it's writing. I'm a publisher. This is what they do." But then we said, look, we wanted to do the posters, for instance, and so we got them, persuaded them to relinquish those rights because they weren't going to use them anyway.
You did all the hard work, and just say yes.
Well, I
fine with me. Okay,
I
that's
thought he's learned a hard lesson, but it's a bit too hard a lesson because. So I did a little bit of persuasion behind the scenes, and we managed to get some rights back. And then we put those to good use. So we exploited those, and at least got some income from that, from selling the posters and so on. But it's very true that most artists, and certainly most authors, don't realise what the money model is, what the business model is for them to actually earn the income. They don't know. They hear all these wonderful stories of authors making millions, but it's how that money comes in and from what sources. And very often, if they're relying on an agent, the agent will be taking 15 to 25% of their income as well. I think in the UK we have access to a thing called the Writers and Artists Yearbook, which comes out every year, and it has some very useful advice from the Writers Guild, which is kind of like a union of writers that are offer very useful legal advice. If your English is good enough and you can get hold of a copy, it's a very valuable book to have because it lists all of the publishers internationally, all of the film companies, TV companies, but most importantly, it tells you who the person is you need to contact.
Yeah, that's very important.
The commissioning editors, the right person, and what their contact address is. Very handy. It's a very useful publication, that one. So
I think I will buy a copy.
You can always you can get it on Amazon, where you get pretty much anything, either Amazon or eBay. But I kind of buy a copy every 2 years or so. It's worth upgrading.
Great.
Thank you for your questions. One more.
Well, I would like to ask a question to Alberto. Well, several actually, but I will try to make it pretty fast. How did you decide to become an illustrator? Was it a child dream or?
I think it's kind of a dream come true. Let me think. I've always drawn. So I was born with a pencil in my hand. Somehow, I have this when I was a young boy, this break. So I was dating with girls and play music. So I didn't even think about become an illustrator. But then, my head was full of images I had collected during over the years. I saw in the books, in the novels, horror and fantasy books, especially, and my purpose was to recreate those suggestions, which suggested me when I was a young boy, and to I know it sounds very pathetic, but make people dream when they could see my stuff, my drawings. So if once they could see something drawn by me, they could say, "Oh, this is great," and this is ugly, but make me feel in a certain way. Doesn't matter what way. And I didn't even think to earn money becoming an illustrator, but my dream was to earn my own living just doing that job. And it's pretty difficult, but I'm doing my best, and after some sacrifices and after some mistakes, I'm learning the lesson, so I'm doing well now. So it's going, and I love to draw fantasy creatures, monsters, vampires, zombies, whatever you want. So something that doesn't exist, and I made it.
That's one question I've always wanted to ask you, Alberto, about the process. You started, obviously, pen and paper.
Old school pen as well.
The transition to computer tech.
Good question. It's a strange story because once I attended the classical school, so it's a kind of self-teaching person. And then I realized that I needed some practical lessons in terms of colors and how to use colors, because I always drew with the pencils, so black and white stuff. And then I decided to attend a school in Milan which could teach me all these techniques. And I was so delighted by the acrylics, the oils and whatever. And I remember that at that time there was, in a strange way, this unspoken passage between between traditional and digital. I mean, because the teachers tried to teach us how to achieve the same effect with the digital medium. And I said, oh, this is not a good thing for me, because I prefer to stay with the traditional medium, and I swear I will never use Photoshop. After I think 2 years, I mean, I completely abandoned the pencils, and no, I mean, I kept.
Do you use a tablet? Or?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I will show you later the way
But actually, projector demonstration.
The thing is that pardon?
You have a Wacom tablet?
Yeah, classical Wacom tablet. And but first, what?
Are there other tablets?
Wacom?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. And but actually, I kept using pencils, and then I scanned them, because I like I did for the first Long Wolf series covers. So this is pencil just scanned and colored by Photoshop in Photoshop. And because I like the idea to have the original pencils, you know, something very physical to touch and to have, because it's mine, I did it. Instead, if you work digitally, you don't have an original. Okay, you have the first file you create, but it's not like the first pencils you have drawn.
Until the first crash.
Until the first crash. Good, very smart. And then I mean, and one of my, I mean, I'm very I go very slow when I draw. So dealing with the deadlines. So to answer the question, that was the problem. So I thought, okay, I can achieve the same result with Photoshop, just practicing a bit. And I realized that an illustration which took me, for example, 3 weeks at that time to be done traditionally, with Photoshop it took half time. With the same result, with a lot of good aspects, such, you know, you can change a level, or you can change the color with some shortcuts. So, okay, it's well worth it to use Photoshop in this case. And then I completely abandoned the pencils, and then I just, you know, I did all the things with the pen tablet. It's so handy, so easy to. It's the same thing. The difference is that you don't look at the paper, you look at the screen. So basically, then you can actually flip the canvas in horizontal or vertical, just to see things in a different perspective, which is very useful, as I will show you later. To, for example, like you're using the tracing paper, for example. Okay, you have this one. Okay, it's tracing paper, so you just basically do the pencil on this, but you can flip this, so you can see the entire scene in reverse. Yes, in another perspective. So you can realize what mistakes you have done. You can just, because, you know, it's like when you look at yourself at the mirror, so you look different than you are in reality. It's a little trick I was taught when I was in school, and so very, very easy. It allows you to correct your mistakes and to correct proportions and correct, I mean, the whole scene. You can do that with the tracing paper, but it's easier with Photoshop. Just click.
Yeah.
You have to redraw it in reverse.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then assume on paper. So yeah. it's a-
But just to conclude the answer, yes, it's very, you have tons of combination you can use. I mean, in terms of values, colors, and textures, you can do everything you want. And I don't know, if you take a look at my stuff, for example, these things I've done. I mean, it's Photoshop, but someone thinks that they were done in traditionally. Because anyway, I work traditionally. I know it sounds like a paradox, but I do paint in this way, even if I use Photoshop. It's really stupid.
It's your style.
But I know I like the result, so I mean I'm very satisfied with the result. So that's why this is my style, so I can't change it. I only can be quicker. And or if you want just to take a look, feel free to do that.
So you mean that by using the computer tool, you don't have to change your way of painting? I mean, it's easier, but you don't have to learn a new skill. You still need
Yes, absolutely, because it influences your way of thinking. I mean, you can think as you did when you painted traditionally, but you are dealing with the machine, not with the traditional mediums. So anyway, you can deal with some problems you didn't have when you was painting traditionally. But on the other hand, you don't deal with the problems you had when you painted traditionally, like making the paper. I know why they are laughing, but wait for the paper dry, for example. Oh, you didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight to the camera.
Okay, I can tell you secrets. I was my purpose was to reinterpret Hulk character. Aren't you sick to see Hulk, like a macho man, or like and a superhero? I wanted to give him a kind of human personality. So that's why I painted it.
Why it's a doll of Wonder Woman?
Why not? Why not? I mean, oh yeah, because of the color spectrum, red, green, and yellow, it all fit together. So I was thinking about Catwoman, but
You didn't
I didn't like the colors. The colors.
I did a bit of photography in my older days, and I realized that, at least for photography, the fact that you have an excellent tool makes you think of other ways to do what you used to do. And I think that's the same for a computer. There's something you can do you did not even realize that you were able to do it. So I think it's kind of a catalyzer, the tool.
Photoshop, you're using techniques that you wouldn't have.
Oh yeah, yes.
in the traditional format.
Yes. Well, it's easier for me to show you later the way, because I mean, just doing the demonstration with Photoshop, it's very easy. But yes,
Your experience is
yeah, it's incredible. Sometimes, okay, you must not commit a mistake to think that if you're not able to draw, Photoshop can teach you to draw, because it is a very common mistake the very beginners commit. I mean, one thing is you can draw and you can just use other tools like Photoshop, Painter, or Illustrator, or whatever, but you cannot learn drawing without computer techniques. And I see that, for example, for instance, when you have to paint the sky, you have tons of brushes in Photoshop, like sky brush, mountain brushes. I mean, just with when you hit the file, the canvas, you see an entire mountain reproduced with a one brush. It's not that fair to me. I mean, I prefer to paint the whole sky. Well, I can use some textures, but it's not the same thing. The same thing for the mountains and for all the environments I paint when I paint environments for some. Pardon?
It's not your mountain.
Exactly.
Right. Somebody else's.
I want to put something myself inside, so not something that someone else did. So
you run the risk of seeing it over and over again. People are using the same file.
Yeah.
It's replicated in lots of different artworks. It becomes too familiar.
Right.
Microsoft artworks.
That's the problem I have seen watching a lot of concept artists. I mean, it's like when you work in a company. I use it in English, like the people who are working in a company.
Corporates.
I mean, they do the same thing, like
Yes.
robots.
Yeah.
So,
Drones.
It's kind of it's a corporate mentality.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, corporate
Exactly. I mean, each artist do the same thing.
Yeah.
There's no difference. I mean, there's no personality. I'd like to avoid to fall in this.
I see this in typography also. Sometimes like, yet another feature, or yet another area, yet another.
Yeah.
I have a last question for you. What are your future projects?
I'm working to several projects at the moment. Being a freelancer, I work with different clients, for different clients. Okay, basically, I have abandoned in this moment fantasy stuff because I'm working on other things. I cannot speak about because I'm under contract, so I cannot. See, you have to corrupt me. I'm sorry.
That's family here.
I'd like to come back to fantasy stuff. I'd like to come back to fantasy covers. I'd like to test myself on concept art for video games because, as Joe was fairly saying before, it's the right field to work in because there are a lot of possibilities and employments for an artist, and the companies need a lot of art in a short period of time. So this would allow me to have a huge range of work, monthly work. Also because being a freelancer means that I don't have a monthly fee. So
you have to be sure.
That's the point. This is more frustrating. I have also done a book cover for a zombie anthology, which is good because I came back to my first love, but it was for free because one kind of favor I did for a friend of mine. So nothing very professional actually. I did it professionally, but not in the professional field. Okay, I can only say that I hope to concretize my dreams, and in terms of working with some companies who produce video games. That's all because I'm currently working on something that I cannot reveal. So
I think you have a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're about there.